Buenos dias, David, and thank you for joining us today at Business Spotlight Series. Today, I'm excited to introduce David Johnson, Managing Director of PEAK, Physical Education and Active Kids, a unique and innovative provider of PE services and delivery to schools across the UK. Welcome, David.
Hi, Javier.
So, David, how did you get in this business? How do you end up doing what you do?
Physical Education and Active Kids, or PEAK, is started off very much as a primary physical education company. Physical education in primary has had, in my lifetime, it's had millions of pounds spent on it. However, teachers are still not being trained to deliver high quality physical education. I'm a physical education teacher. I have been for too many years to remember, Javier, and I set the company up 9 years ago to try and provide an alternative for primary schools to buy in high quality PE. We also set up an apprenticeship program where we worked with an apprenticeship training provider, Sunderland College, to actually put PE apprentices into schools. So yeah, our initial days were about trying to simply raise the quality of physical education. We operate primarily in the Northeast, and that was kind of our mission statement when we first started.
Wow, very impressive. Was PE what you always wanted to do as a child? How do you get into PE?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story. I got an injury. I was a keen sports person, and I was injured when I was about 11. My knee sort of blew up, and nobody knew what it was. What it was. GP eventually diagnosed it as Osgood Slattis, and the advice at that time was basically stop playing sport for a year. Now, you turn around to a sports mad 11-year-old and say, don't play sport for a year. And you can imagine how I was feeling. And I remember I was watching Match of the Day, and they put up an advert if you wanted to qualify to be a referee. And I qualified to be a referee at age 11.
Wow.
I was the youngest in the country. And I started, and I was only allowed to run the line before I was 14. And I went along to an organisation called the Little League, which operated in South London. And there was a new Little League starting quite close to my house. And I just mentioned one day, as a 12, 13-year-old kid, I would really like to help coach a team. And one of the dads who was acting as a coach sort of took me under his wing and said, well, you can help me run this team if you want. And I took my first coaching qualification with the FA age 14, which was the youth team managers course, and sports coaching has always been in my blood since then. I've now been coaching sport for over 40 years, and a range of sports. And at about 20, when I was about 25, I was kind of working in retail and coaching as a hobby. I thought, do you know what? Why don't I go and train to be a PE teacher and do it for a living? And yeah, the rest is kind of history. Qualified, had 15 years working in schools up to senior management level. I'd worked for the local authority as a sort of PE advisor. I had, I've been a national trainer for the Youth Sport Trust. I've delivered Sport England projects. And there came a day about 10 years ago where I kind of became a little bit disillusioned working in a school. And so I decided to take the step to work outside of education, but looking in, and created Physical Education and Active Kids. And the rest is history, I suppose.
Wow, that's an amazing story, David. Are you active in the field, or we are running the business, or how are you involved in some of the activities?
Yeah, that's my only bugbear with running a business, Javier, is I don't get to do the things that I really enjoy, which is kind of working with children.
Yes.
But I still occasionally get the opportunity at holiday camps and things like that, to actually get stuck in and work with the children.
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose my life now is providing opportunities for young people to get into employment, as a sports coach or working in a school. So I suppose my focus now really is on those coaching, older teenagers, people in their young 20s, through apprenticeships, to actually get them qualified to work in the workplace.
Yeah.
um I saw the government are making people work till 71. Believe me, nobody wants a 71-year-old PE teacher. Even at my age, people are going, really? So yeah, that's the unfortunate thing of running a business, is you just don't get to do the day-to-day stuff that you
Yes.
really have a passion about.
Yes. Well, I myself, I run a youth club, and every year at our age, every year, getting, in the field there gets a bit slightly harder and harder. But yeah, it's great. Okay, so who is the first person that comes to mind when you think about success?
When I think of success, that's a very good question. I have worked for a lot of successful people. I'm not going to sit here and say Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or anything like that. I think there's a lot of people that I have worked for. There was a head teacher in particular I worked for in a school in Peckham. Her name was Miriam Kurt. She was a complete firebrand. I mean, this was a difficult school to work in. There was kind of, kids were running around on the estates in gangs, and that, I remember kids were having drugs and knives taken off them in schools. And she had such amazing presence with these children. She used to walk around without any shoes on, just in her stocking feet quite a lot of the time. Her voice could be heard from about 300 yards. But she inspired so many children, and I was a young teacher at the time. I was only in my second year of teaching, and she showed me what it was possible to achieve with children. And I think in teaching in general, we have these absurd targets on sort of how many children get whatever level in English and whatever level in maths. Well, for children, not every child is the same. And she taught me that that children who weren't able to achieve those grade C's and in GCSEs or level 4s as they are now could still achieve, and you could still be proud of them, and you could still make their lives better by reaching out and engaging them. So yeah, I would say Miriam, that, I don't know what she's doing now, unfortunately. I very
She
much
had an
hope
influence in your life. Yeah,
yeah, she kind of taught me that success was not necessarily about what you achieve for yourself. It was about what you achieve for the learners in your care.
yes, brilliant. Very well put. Yeah. What is your favorite book?
My favorite book. I shall probably bore you here now. I've got a master's degree in sports history, and so I'm always reading autobiographies of sports people. I'm currently reading. I've currently got 2 books on the go. I'm currently reading about CB Fry and Pele, which is a
Yeah.
slightly different mix, but yeah, no, I think you can learn so much from other people's lives, and I think sport encompasses everything in society. You've got people who have risen to the top of their game, and you really get an insight into how they got there and how they achieved it. have I got one particular favorite? I've just actually read a biography of Malcolm Allison, who which just blew me away. I mean, what an amazing insight that man had to how we now look at football. He was trying to get his teams in the sort of 70s and 80s to play football the same way that we do now.
Wow.
By passing the ball around and moving around, creating those triangles at a time when I used to watch football in those days as a kid, and it was the defender's job was to get the ball up the field as quickly as possible. So it's people reading about people like that who can see the future, and they do everything that they can to try and influence the game that they are part of to embrace new ideas.
Yeah, well, that style of football, it reminds me of the Spanish style of passing the ball around. Maybe they do too much of that, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, possibly you could say that the game has changed, and some people who were brought up in that sort of our generation, Javier, who were brought up with you had your hard men at the back, and their job was to get the ball off somebody, by fair means or foul, and boot the ball as quickly up the field as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, there are some people who yearn for those days, but everything changes.
Definitely.
The way we do everything changes as we find better ways of doing them.
Yeah, evolve. Yes. What's David? What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie, Shawshank Redemption.
Wow. Yeah, that's a great movie. Yes.
Yeah, I probably watched that 20 or 30 times over. But it's a fantastic film, and I like films that are a good story that you can kind of immerse yourself in.
Yes. What attracted you to that movie? Is there something that you got from it?
It's the quality of the story, and other films I like, for example, The Green Mile. They're just films that you can just
rewatch.
And just Usual Suspects is another one where the story is the king, and it draws you in, and
an engaging story.
it is. It's about engagement. It's exactly the same as what a good teacher will do to a young learner. They'll draw them in, they'll get their interest, and that child will come out of that lesson with more knowledge than they had at the start of it.
That reminds me of the movie of Dead Poets Society.
Yes.
Where the impact of the teacher on the kids. There are a few good movies on the schools and
there are
boarding schools and so on. Great. What are some of the challenges you've had to face in building the business to where you got it today?
The challenge is trying. I think the biggest one is when you set up a company or an organization, you have your aims, your expectations, what you want it to be, and it's about communicating that to the rest of your team to say, this is what we want to achieve, whether that's children coming out who are physically literate, coming out of primary school, whether that's sort of children at holiday camps who are, we want them to go home tired, having enjoyed themselves, having learnt new skills. If we've got an apprentice on board, we want them to get to their endpoint assessment and pass that apprenticeship. But it's the it's the aims and objectives of the company. You need to communicate that to everybody. And sometimes that's the hard bit, because you do the communication, you share your vision and your dreams and aspirations for people and clients who come into contact with your company. And if you don't live up to the quality of your vision, that means you haven't communicated that properly, you haven't trained it to your staff sufficiently.
Yeah. Okay. How far afield do you reach? I mean, geographically, is it the whole of the UK or
Yes and no. Our PE provision is just in the northeast,
okay,
and our wraparound care provision is in the northeast.
okay,
We're also an apprenticeship training provider. We have apprentices that we are training in Essex. We've got some in Stoke, some in North Yorkshire as well. So with apprenticeships, it is slightly easier to have a wider remit.
okay, brilliant, excellent. So just to wrap up, do you have any advice for your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, actually, obviously the most common thing people probably say to this is never give up, but I think my advice might be recognize when it's time to stop doing something. In business, we all do things that don't work sometimes, and I've certainly been guilty in the past, as I'm sure every other business owner has, is, you're convinced that this is a brilliant idea and you're not getting any sales and you're not getting any interest despite the emails going out and the letters going out. And sometimes you need to go, yeah, it might be a good idea, but it's time to stop flogging that dead horse. And I think you need to know when to give up on something. It's just as important as not giving up, if that makes sense.
Brilliant, yeah, great insight. You could say that some ideas may feed your ego, not your business.
Yeah. You've hit the nail on the head there. Yeah. I've certainly done it. We've launched products and we thought this is brilliant. Schools will love this, and 6 months later you haven't sold one of them, and it's like, okay, maybe not such a good idea.
Yes, brilliant. So just to finish, David, do you have any news about or offers that you would like to share with people watching this recording?
Yeah, I mean, Physical Education and Active Kids may have started off as a PE company, but we've diversified. And the big area of our business and the way that we can help people is with our apprenticeships. And it's not just schools. Our apprenticeships we offer are very much tasked at schools. We offer early years, we offer sports coach, we offer teaching assistant, but the business admin and the customer service courses, they are open to all companies. Now, I'm a big believer in apprenticeships. I've employed apprentices to help me get the company up and running, to give young people the opportunity to learn on job, to give them the skills. Some have stayed with me for a long time, and apprenticeships for me are so valuable as an employer, that young people bring so many new ideas into your company, and if you're somebody who will listen to them and think, actually that's not a bad idea, let's give it a go, apprenticeships are so beneficial. And as a small company, we engage, I think, better with organizations. You're not dealing with a college with 10,000 employers and 20,000 apprentices. You're dealing with a small company where you as an employer really matter to us.
Definitely. Well done. Well, David, it's been a real pleasure to have you join us today at Business Spotlight series and for sharing your experience and wisdom with us today. Thank you so much.
No problem, Javier. Thanks for having me on.